My name is Araceli Martinez Ortiz. I am a professor of engineering education at the University of Texas at San Antonio. And I have the privilege of being part of cohort number 1 for the MSI Academic Interchange cohort. And so today I'm going to go through that opportunity for you. I will offer a few insights as to my experience. I'll try to stick to the script, and I will also provide some examples as to how to apply. And then feature some of the frequently asked questions. I will say that please, now that you know how to use the chat, all of us know how to use these chats nowadays, please enter any of your questions or comments into the chat as I'm trying to present. Oh, and there's a wonderful applicant right there. So look out, everybody. There's your competition right there. So let's have fun together. Let's have a good time. I will try to be conversational in presenting the information, but I also have to read the slides, so I'll do my very best. And again, use the chat to ask your questions. It will be a lot more consistent for us to provide you proper answers, vetted answers, consistent with our policies, and then they will be we will be able to share them with all. And so we'll ask you to do that there. But I have selected some of the frequently asked questions that I think provide the depth of information that we often hear is requested. So let me get started. Let's go to the next slide, please. Someone is Chanel's driving for me. Thank you, or the puppy. So either way, they're doing a good job. Um, the team members. So the cohort 1 of MAKE are two of us from minority serving institutions, Dr. Constance Metters. And then myself, as I have introduced myself, and we report to our the JSC OSTEM director, who happens to have this special project under his purview. Next slide. We also have the support of the great NRES team, as Chanel introduced. NRES is the NASA Research and Education Support Services. So they are the good people who put together all of these solicitations for us at NASA and assist with the collection of applications, setting up the system of Inspires and just going through all of the work in the background to make sure that everybody has a fair shot at applying and of putting in a good proposal, and then they assist us in making sure we make rubric-based selections. So that team is Gregory Cutler, Beata Kozak, and Ms. Chanel Hatton. Next slide. A little bit of background for the MAKE program. I've mentioned already that I'm part of cohort 1, and so now we are seeking, this is for cohort 2, so NASA is seeking 2 to 3, so between 2 and 3, mid-career faculty and or staff whose skills and specialized experiences can support the Office of STEM Engagement's 3 focus areas. So that is the OSTEM office. And those focus areas are the first one, creating unique opportunities for students and the public to contribute to NASA's work in exploration and discovery. Number 2, building a diverse future STEM workforce by engaging students in authentic learning experiences with NASA people, content, and facilities. And number 3, strengthening the public's understanding by enabling powerful connections to NASA's mission and work. This may just seem like background, but it's very important because the work of the selectee in this role of the academic interchange cohort really has to align to support the work of the Office of STEM Engagement, which I have listed here. Next slide. The opportunity is a nationwide search. We are looking for STEM or education faculty or STEM education staff who are employed at minority serving institutions to join this team. This is a little bit of a longer assignment than the one I'm on. I've been on a 2-year assignment. This one would be a 2.5-year assignment. So please make note of that. And this is because it would be a cohort that would be leveling the timing that NASA wants to have to align to the academic year. In my case, we finish in January, and in the new program in the future, it would want to be a 2-year program. So just want to make sure that you realize that. The cohort begins, if you were to be selected, your opportunity would not begin until January of 2023 and would end on January 30th of 2025. So notice that there are many months seemingly between now and then, but as I will describe, because this opportunity transfers you from one institution into another for that agreed upon period of time, it's important to have the time to transition from your current duties and then be available for this opportunity with NASA. Um, the other important thing to note is that applications are due in 3 weeks. So you really want to be thinking about 2 weeks so that you have everything in order within 2 weeks and you're working with your institution to make that submission in time. You don't want to be in that position where you're waiting to submit until the last day of June 24th. One last thing I'll mention is that this program is facilitated through what is called the IPA Mobility Program. And this is the policy that allows for the temporary assignment of personnel between federal government, state and local governments, colleges, and universities. So this means, for me, for example, I was able to leave my university on loan to NASA without having to be hired in by NASA as an employee. I will always remain an employee of my university, in my case, the UT San Antonio, and then when I finish my assignment, I simply come back, and during that time, I receive my salary and my benefits and continue my, my term with the university. So all of that time continues to be continuous. All right, let's go to the next slide. We'll cover much more of this in detail. Again, the goals and objectives. So why does NASA's Office of STEM Engagement want to do this? Um, they're very interested in bringing in expertise such as that is held by staff and faculty who are at minority serving institutions because they believe that that experience will help NASA accomplish goal number 2, translating experience to build that diverse future STEM workforce. They want to provide a benefit to minority serving institutions by strengthening that individual. In my case, I know so much more about NASA now, and I can share that kind of information once I am, back fully on campus with my colleagues, with my students. I know more about competitions and I know more about objectives and missions, even technical matter I may know a little bit more about. So that allows me to come back as a stronger player in my original location. It also helps to build a network of alumni who return to MSIs and continue to strengthen that ecosystem. So, we would be colleagues if one of you were to be selected because, we would have this common experience. It all comes with that end goal of increasing the diversity of the OSTEM workforce. So NASA wants to connect with your university. NASA wants to make sure that we are leveraging and offering opportunities to the MSI students as well as others. And it really allows the OSTEM the capability to accomplish additional tasks. So with our time, with our expertise, we can take on projects that they may not have had the skills for internally, or they may not have had, the time of that staff. So it's it's set up to be a win-win opportunity for both NASA and the minority serving institution, and certainly for the candidate. Next slide. A little bit more about the benefits, because when if you decide to go for this opportunity, um, the major decision is to decide if there are enough benefits for you and your institution to for you to decide to leave where you currently are, and that's an important decision, because there are things that you can accomplish in your current role. And there are certainly other things that you can accomplish in this role, and so you have to weigh that those benefits and those challenges. But a little bit more on the benefits. Um, by participating in this kind of program, these are some of the benefits that I myself have experienced. You are really treated as a NASA employee immediately. You're adopted and you're a part of teams, you're assigned to special projects, you collaborate and learn a lot more about the initiatives, things that sometimes, may have passed by you as a busy faculty or staff member on other work. You can participate in professional development. So many resources are available at NASA, and really we don't say here is the exact PD program, because it's really customized. Because it's such a small cohort, it's really about what you want to learn more about. And then the organization and your director will facilitate so that you can have access to either video or live seminars at NASA, sometimes at different NASA centers. And some of the topics, can be very technical, or they might also be in general, like NASA innovation or NASA project management, NASA leadership development, understanding the work of the NASA mission directorates, and also the work of the NASA centers. So depending on what your interest is and how you want to develop, a personal professional development program will be set up with your input. Um, and finally, you get to network with a lot of new people. Not only the activity leads, who are NASA, for the most part, NASA civil servants, but also with other awardees, not from the MAKE program, but also from other grant funded initiatives that may be going on. And so this is a really wonderful way to make connections for your future research, for your future extension of projects that you may have going on, you know, that you're planning on initiating when you return. And of course, as I mentioned, the any participation on approved activities, NASA provides that travel. And so you don't have to worry about needing to have travel support from your university. All of that will be made available to you, and it's sometimes if you don't have those travel opportunities, this is a very nice perk. Next slide. Now, I've talked about the benefits, so let's talk a little bit more about the role of the selectee. So once you are selected, we've talked about NASA's interest in supporting MSIs and in leveraging expertise, but they really want to build these rotating cohorts of awardees. So they've had a good experience, I believe, with cohort number one, and so they've decided to continue funding and in fact expand the funding, so that they can continue with the program. The vision is that it be a long-term ongoing program, and I hope that that is realized, and perhaps in the future would be as easily recognized as as an international fellowship, that your university already recognizes from whatever field you're in. That would be the hope, that you don't have to really sell it. Rather, it would be stiff competition to even quickly identify, oh yes, absolutely apply for it. But some of the activities that you may be carrying out could include developing strategies to infuse diversity and inclusion within uh, NASA's own mission directorates. It could be establishing priorities to enhance the participation of various partnerships with MSIs in order to see increased involvement. So as you can start to see, they're really focused on, what kinds of unique expertise might we bring since we have been working at highly diverse institutions, and then can we help NASA to adopt more of those strategies, and then in particular strategies that will impact the types of programming that NASA offers to future students and future workforce. You may find yourself managing significant elements of a particular partnership with one or more NASA mission directorates, or you may find that you are working as an in-house consultant, and that's kind of been my experience, because I have quite a background in engineering education and broadening participation of underserved students. I can come on board and provide direction, and even provide seminars and so forth. So lots of different activities. It's a broad range. So you really need to think about what you can offer, and later on, I'll show you a sample of the application letter that you will be required to write. And there you can see where you might connect to some of the skills that, are close in nature to these types of activities. Next slide. As I mentioned, cohort 1 started with 2 professors, Dr. Matters from University of Arkansas at Pine Bluff, and uh, I had had some experience working as a PI with NASA, and I really took that experience and made the connections that I thought were important for NASA to see, what I could do. One of my major activities, as I was mentioning, was developing seminars and workshops on culturally responsive engagement approaches. And they were very delighted by the fact that I could bring them that skill. So they asked me to develop and deliver a set of virtual seminars just for internal staff and program and activity managers. And so it was very satisfying for me to see hundreds of NASA professionals participating um, in these informative sessions, and then working with me and contacting me to work on their teams, to look at a specific situation that they were facing, or a competition where for years maybe they haven't had the participation from minority serving institutions that they would like to see. And and we work together to define new strategies that would help them to do that. So that's just one example. That's something that I'm proud of, that I was able to provide. But certainly I'm working on like 5 different projects, and so that is an opportunity for you. Some are short projects that you are on for a few weeks or months, and some are longer ones that might engage you for 6 months to 9 months, for example. So that's the one example that I wanted to share. Next slide. Um, just a few reminders here of the application procedure. Hopefully you have read the Dear Colleague letter. Hopefully you have gone into Inspires and you have seen the various resources there that are there. Um, Folks always ask us about eligibility, and remember that NASA is a federal agency, and the federal funding is restricted in many different ways. So you'll see that reflection in the eligibility. U.S. citizens may apply for this opportunity, or nationals, and those are residents of American Samoa and Swain Islands. So please understand that carefully. Um, if you're on some special visa, it still doesn't apply. You have to meet the U.S. citizen eligibility. Um, you also have to be a full-time, either STEM And when I say STEM here, you can be in engineering, you can be a mathematics professor, you can be science, anything that you consider as part of that STEM umbrella. So it's really broad. We're looking for STEM faculty or STEM education faculty. So you could come out of the College of Education, but have a particular focus in the STEM areas. That's um, an allowed category. But you can also be administrative or managerial staff. Um, I will tell you that in particular, they're looking for people who can bring the skills that they're looking for to solve those problems or those challenges. And so they're looking for people that have worked directly with students, probably with STEM students, possibly with pre-engineering programs. So that's the kind of staff experience that they're looking for. And you may be allowed to apply, but please know that they're looking for strength in the skills you bring in that particular area. You can be a full-time employee, as I've described, from a four-year university, but also from a two-year university, as long as it is accredited and as long as it is designated as a minority serving institution. Then you also have to have a letter that allows, right? So that offers the support of your application. So basically, they're providing the permission for you to leave the university for that potential period of time. And so that has to come from an authorizing official representative of the university. NASA can only describe it in this way, an authorizing official representative. But in my experience, I can tell you that most universities, it depends, right? But in my university, I started with my chair. So I talked to the chair about it. Then we met with the dean and got approval from the dean that this would be a good opportunity and it would serve the university and my development well. And then finally, at my particular university, it also required the signature and a form that was unique to my university that should be signed by the provost. So please investigate that on your own, because that is fully dependent on the practices of your university as to what they require when a faculty wants to go on a paid fellowship away from the university. And so there's lots of things that they have to consider and they have to sign off on. And so that's really important that you have that. And finally, I did already talk about the IPA, so the Intergovernmental Personnel Assignment that is it. Um, so again, faculty and or staff who meet the general requirements, particularly members of underrepresented or underserved groups and persons with disabilities, are strongly encouraged to consider this opportunity. And we've been holding many sessions and following up with folks because we really want to make sure that everyone, as many people as possible hear about the opportunity. And let me just do a technical check. I think that we had lost sound for a moment, but I hope that I'm good to go. And Chanel, you'll tell me if there's a problem. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Please do your research and look carefully at the information that you will find here at these links about the NASA MUREP project, which is the Minority University Research Project, and you can find that link there. And then also uh, it will help if you read the NASA strategy for STEM engagement. Remember that NASA does not have an Office of Education anymore, and so the work that is done is to engage students in STEM. And so you want to read very carefully about the NASA strategy, as well as the types of projects that fall under the NASA MURAP organization. These are the two organizations that work together and fund the program. And therefore, as you are doing your research, it will help you to understand what they do. Next slide. Now, the submission, it's actually very straightforward. We get a lot of questions about, oh, well, where's the 30-page solicitation document that explains everything that needs to be submitted, kind of like with NSF, if you're experienced with that. This is different. You'll find everything you need in the Inspires website. I think I'll show you a snapshot of that in a moment. But just know that what you're actually submitting are very few documents. You just have to be careful um, to submit them in the way that NASA wants them to be submitted, and you also have to uh, probably work even harder at making sure that you can be very, very succinct in presenting your information, because you really only have a couple of pages to express your intent, your skills, your interests, how you connect, all of those things. The package must include one PDF that you make on your own computer with the following documents: a 2-page letter of intent, a letter of support from an authorizing official representative of the institution, and a current resume or current vita. And the step-by-step submission instructions you can find on the Inspire site. And again, you'll be submitting only one document, so you'll merge those into one PDF document. And then when you're ready to upload that, you will submit the one package. I think we have a few more slides, a couple more slides with details. So let's look at the next slide, please. Very tiny to read, but you will find this sample template letter as one of the attachments or resources in the Inspires site. I just wanted to just show you that basically, you've got space there for maybe 4 paragraphs, right? So you want to refer to the opportunity. And this is just one way of doing it. You can do it any way that you want, any way that you think will convey the key points. Um, this is one sample. Again, in the first paragraph, you might present your interest to the opportunity and make sure that it's understood that you meet all of the requirements. In your second paragraph, you might want to list some specific examples of your experience, and you might want to show how those examples might connect to some of the strategies or some of the objectives that have been shown to be, those of the organization looking for the cohort member. In paragraph 3, you might talk a little bit more about your motivation. Why is it that you're interested in this? What will you gain? What will you provide? And then, in your final paragraph, you might review some of the things that you've accomplished, or some of the things that you hope to accomplish, just to provide some insight as to, what unique skills do you bring? Why are you the best candidate? It's really a letter that, it's sells you. So the proposal is that, you're not proposing necessarily one idea here, you're proposing yourself. And so you have to talk about all of the skills, all of the experiences, and then, give examples and make them feel motivated to say, hey, this person has really put a lot of thought into this, and has found ways to connect to our strategies, and we think they'll bring, something to the table. So that's the letter. That's what you need to be focusing on. Next slide. The next slide are the key dates. And I see in the chat just very clearly, people were asking about that particular slide. Again, maybe it wasn't visible because the type is so tiny, but I just wanted to read through it, explain it a little bit, and again, go and download it from the Inspire site. The key dates, I already mentioned that the proposal is due on June 24th, and I want to encourage you to be thinking about having that completed a week ahead of time and make sure that you are working with your university to make sure that there are no surprises and no last minute confusion. Um, if all of this happens well and you get your application in, the we will work very hard on our side, and remarkably fast is our plan to work on identifying our top candidates. There may be an, an additional step to the selection. I don't know for sure at this time, but in the past, additional interviews have been requested before the selection was finalized. And so that will help so that we can announce the intent to award even this summer. So we're going to say late August to September, but ideally we want to allow that fall semester for the person who has been selected to make all of the appropriate changes and updates and transitions to their work to allow them to be on leave, so to speak, for that time period, because this is a full-time opportunity. This is 40 hours a week. You're going to be treated as a full-time employee with NASA on IPA, but that means that you will not be able to probably to teach or continue researching or continue your staff duties because you'll be working for the NASA um, um, MSI academic interchange cohort. All right. And then the assignment begins January the 9th. Where did we say? Yes, that's correct. That's inaccurate. The September through November transition is 2022. So this fall semester is the transition to allow the assignment to be the person to be ready to begin assignment in 2023. Thank you for catching that. All right, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, just a quick view of Inspires. Hopefully, I would assume that most of you have gone to this site already to see the documents there, downloading the announcement, downloading, as you can see there, the presentations that I have provided in the last month. Um, the full document with questions and answers, make sure you download that and take a look. The sample application letter, and then the step-by-step submission instructions. They're not difficult, but they are different than what you might have followed in the past to submit a NASA research proposal in another instance. It is a little bit different, so you want to make sure you download that and follow the specific instructions. And again, if you start with time, let's look at the next slide. You can have opportunity to call for assistance. Again, read the step-by-step instructions. Remember that you're using the Inspire systems. You have to. I won't explain exactly what all this is, but you have to affiliate yourself in a particular way so that you can submit, and that the document that you submit goes to the right office. Um, Remember that this is the make opportunity, and the solicitation number, if you can't find it, by just browsing, use what's in that parentheses. Do a search for NASA underscore MAIC 2023. Okay, next slide. Okay, I think I've talked about most of that. Next slide. Yeah, here's where I wanted us to get us to. The Inspires Help Desk. It's only available Monday through Friday and from 8 to 6 Eastern. So you need to, keep in mind your time zone. Um, Sometimes, it takes, like any help desk, might take a few tries or a little bit of time on the phone to get your turn in the queue. You can also send emails. So this is important if you're having some question, some issue. What do I put here? What do I do there? There's a field and I don't know how to fill that out. These are the kinds of things that can be helpful to you. Most of that, I would say, can be answered if you read very, very, very carefully in the instructions, and you're a little bit familiar with this, but often, you miss something. So it's better to have the time to call in and make sure that everything is correct. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, let's see how we are on time. Okay, so we've got a little bit of time. I think what I've done here is I've pulled some of the questions and answers that are most often asked or provide, a rich set of information. So let's go through these. I think I have about 10 of them, and we should be done probably within the hour. Question number two, and the question comes from, again, that full set of questions. So if you want to read back and refer to it, you'll know that this is question number two. Is there a stipend attached to this opportunity? The opportunity sounds interesting, but could you provide more information about what the participants receive? Is there a budget or salary support? So I think I've talked enough about the kind of intangible types of benefits that you get, the professional benefits. But again, when it comes to stipends, budget, or salary, you have to remember that this is not really a grant. It's not a grant, so your institution is not provided a specific set of funding. Rather, the institutions, NASA and your institution agree that you will go to work with NASA during this time, um, and they sign an agreement that is part of this Intergovernmental Personnel Mobility Act, or IPA, and then the funding is the budget for your salary and benefits. So that will be provided, and it's all on a case by case basis. So it doesn't have like a strict, okay, for this opportunity, you will receive $50,000 or $100,000. No, it basically talks about the fund. It continues your salary at your current rate and all of your benefits. And NASA agrees that they'll fund the university that amount so that the university can continue to pay you that amount. Um, this year, there is a nice opportunity that you'll want to look into, and that is at the end of the answer there, it says, if the selectee's salary is lower than GS 14 step 1, and that's just the salary range classification that is set by the government. You can look at that schedule on opm.gov. If your salary is less than that, then there may be a possibility that NASA can adjust your salary during the time that you are on this IPA. So that's something to look into. Of course, if your salary is higher than that, then you want to keep your higher salary, and that is assumed that that would be the case. But if your salary happens to be lower than the GS 14, then you may even have an opportunity for a little bump in salary during this time. And so your university will be very clear with you on that. Next slide. All right. Okay. So this question, the notification and the webinar indicate the opportunity is in the form of that IPA. So the selectee is approved to serve in their position at their current salary. So the real question here then is, would this mean that my institution not only has to pay my salary to me while I'm away, but also the salary of whoever takes my place, covering my duties and classes? Or is it that the IPA covers my salary and my university would agree to the release time? It's probably closer to the second part. So only one salary is being covered, and that is your salary. Um, it, NASA is not involved with, who takes your place, if a place needs to be taken. And so that, is why the university has to agree that you can go. Um, they may choose whatever approach they want to cover for that. But they're basically agreeing to the release time. So if you apply, the university enters into that IPA agreement. You remain a university employment with your employee with your current institution, but your work efforts are in support of the MAKE activity plan. One more time, your university would provide NASA with a budget that says, here's what my employee costs for that total agreement period. And then if NASA agrees with that, then they reimburse the university for that salary and benefits. And then we've talked already about the GS-14, so there's another adjustment that might happen on a case by case. NASA will directly pay for any approved travel, and the bottom line is the university should not be impacted with any financial burden, especially if they follow the guidance for reimbursement. And yes, they are agreeing to the release time. All right, there's a lot there, so you may want to read that carefully at your leisure. Next slide. Are relocation expenses paid if I'm to be placed at NASA? I have some faculty members interested. They're curious if the remote position was only in response to COVID. It's true that as a cohort one, we coincided with that timing, so that was the most reasonable approach, that we would not relocate, rather we would be in a remote position. We have found that to work remarkably well, especially in our, short-term positions. And so the answer to this question is that the selectee will be on remote telework assignment to NASA while remaining at their current location. NASA and the selectee will jointly revisit the arrangement as needed with the greatest consideration for individual health and safety. So this is not a relocation program. It is a telework assignment. You will remain at your location. Um, Most likely, in my case, I began working from home and set up my home office, and NASA provided me my computer, and I set up my VPN and all of that, and that became my new work, remote work. Um, and we've mentioned before that travel is covered as needed, and as things have opened up, I've traveled, and all of that has been covered by NASA, but I've never had to relocate. Question number 8, when would a 2023 MSI cohort activity start? We mentioned that it would start on January the 9th, 2023, and end on June 30th, 2025. Next slide. I'm familiar with the NSF proposal submitting process, in which there are information about what the proposal should entail, budget allocation, percentages, et cetera, et cetera. Um, what is expected here? Again, it's different. Yes, all of that is outlined as to what is required, but you're not submitting a budget. You're not provided this is a grant of $200,000, figure out how you spend it. No, you go back to the Dear Colleague letter that identifies the requirements. If you're interested, you click there, you read all of the requirements that I've gone through in detail with you, and that is what you submit. You're going to submit one PDF document that contains the two-page letter, the letter of support, and your CV. So those are the things that will comprise that application packet. Next slide, please. What is the time commitment for this opportunity? Um, Cohort 2 will be 2.5 years, but what does that participation look like? Again, I can't stress this enough. This position is for an IPA, as described in the announcement. It is considered a regular full-time opportunity, 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week. However, the selectee may be able to participate in tailoring some specific tasks. That allowance is there. because it's not like a regular office job that you're going in and you have to check in at a certain time and check out. No, it's a professional opportunity, but it's a professional opportunity that expects you to be available 40 hours a week. And you'll see that 40 hours a week very quickly start to book up your calendar because you'll be participating in meetings with the cohort, in meetings with your space or research center director, perhaps their staff meetings. You'll have activities and projects, and you'll be developing materials. So there's always a lot that will start to creep in, and by the probably by within the first couple of months, your calendar is full, and you've got regular recurring meetings, and you're working on things. So you need to make sure you understand that you're not a part-time employee, and it would be quite difficult to manage, current duties at your university as well as this. The expectation is that you are an S employee on IPA. What are the professional benefits for participating staff? I think I've talked about a lot about this already, but again, the main point I think I want to cover is that the second sentence there, the staff and faculty can become more familiar with NASA programs, projects, and activities that can be passed on to the institution's faculty, students, and other staff. That's really important, and that's an idea that you want to make sure you convey to your leadership when you're talking to them about the benefits to the institution. Because certainly everyone wants to support you as a professional, but it's even more interesting when there's an additional benefit that can be gained by the university and their students, and other efforts. And finally, there is opportunity for tailoring. So again, if you want you've always really wanted to work with the um, JPL and robotics. And so you really want to be connected to them, and you really want to learn more about the robotics missions and the Mars rovers and things like that. Um, you know, if that's an interest of yours and that's an area you want to develop, and maybe you run robotics courses and programs for your students, and you want to learn how to do that and be even sharper with that upon your return. These are the kinds of things you want to express in a general way in your letter, and later in your interview, and then once you are assigned, you will have an opportunity to tailor that even more. Next slide. As to additional resources that can support marginalized staff or faculty who participate, this is sometimes a worry because maybe this is your first time to have an opportunity to work with NASA, and you may be worried about, are you ready to join this organization? The answer is that NASA has both technical and administrative resources to support you. And if you're selected for reasons that are important to the NASA organizations. And there's even a mentor that will be designated to each person. And that is to support in this effort of assisting and making sure that you understand the organization as a whole, and that you have someone to go to in addition to your regular team to help you fit in and feel like you're getting the most for for the experience. Another question that's often asked is about the students that are supported, and the grades of students in the program. Are they focused on K-12, undergraduates, graduates, or all? Um, as I mentioned before, the IPA focuses on MSI engagement, so on engaging students from minority serving institutions. And so the minority serving institutions are higher education. So I would say then, that implies undergraduate and graduate students primarily. So the primary audience are those higher education students. However, we also seek to inspire, and so the inspiration comes when we work with organizations or sometimes directly with K-12 students. So you may be involved in some activities with Next Generation STEM, and you can see the NASA website for a description of more of these types of activities. All right, next slide. I'm very interested in applying for the opportunity. Based on the information in the Haku website, my institution is listed as an emerging HSI. If my institution is emerging and not a full HSI, would I still be eligible? Um, the way that NASA manages, those distinctions is that they have their own list, and if you follow that list, you'll see the NASA Minority Serving Institutions list, and there they're constantly updating based on emerging likelihood to go from emerging to a full MSI, whatever the case may be. But that's your real resource, okay? So go to that NASA Minority Serving Institution list. I think we have the link in there, but it's also listed there because, sometimes, I don't know if I caught the whole link, but, or if it's active on your PDF. So I wanted to make sure that you had that specific URL so that you can make sure that you are eligible. Okay, next slide. Does this opportunity require relocation or is it virtual? I think we've talked about this again. It was a COVID-19 decision or impetus that took us to the decision to make it a remote, but now it is designated as a remote telework assignment and travel. There is because they're a federal organization, there is constant updates and constant awareness and respect to what is happening in the regions as far as travel, as far as working in the office. NASA is currently in a phase where they are starting to go back to the office as far as the local civil servant employees that go into centers, and so that may influence the amount of travel that they may require of you. So. It is expected that the program can be managed successfully as a virtual assignment with up to 25% recurring travel during the assignment period. I haven't had that much travel, but that they usually want to include a statement like that to cover up to 25% travel. That's something always that you can negotiate, and it's not about spending for you to travel just because they want you there. There may be special events that you can assist with. There may be special organizational strategic groups that are meeting, and that's why the travel is important. But again, it is not a relocation, it is a virtual remote with travel covered. All right, I think we got maybe one more slide. Next slide. All right, is an interview process expected to follow the down selection of proposals, or is the entire decision made based on the submitted? As I alluded to, there will be an interview process with a panel of NASA employees scheduled approximately a week and a half after proposals are submitted. So it's quite quick. So if you're very serious about this, you might want to make sure you're available in case you are called to come in and present yourself and interview in the next stage. All right, next slide. Next slide tells us that we are just about done. So if you have any additional questions, I noticed that there are some other good ones that have been dropping into the chat. Uh, the few that I could that are just administrative, I picked them up, but the others will be uh, they will be sorted and they will be called by our friend Chanel, who will identify if there are new questions that haven't been answered in the current FAQ, and these questions will be added along with the answers probably within the next week, and so you will see that new document. Um, if you have any additional questions, please send them to nasa.maic@nasaprs.com. And maybe one last thing I will say is that some of the questions that are dropping into the chat, they are already answered in the FAQ. So take a look at that maybe even today, because you'll find that your question may already be answered. All right, so I think that's it for me. I'm going to close there, and I'm going to see if Ms. Chanel has any further instructions for us. It's been a pleasure to chat with you. I want to encourage you, even if you're not too sure, if you're at all interested, it's a pretty straightforward type of application. It's been a great benefit to me professionally and to my institution. I can recommend it because of my experience, because it's such a small cohort. You really do get a lot of attention, and I mean, I'm in the top leadership meetings every week, and that's such a privilege to be able to be considered, a colleague and a professional, and it will fulfill your wish of I wish I could work for NASA someday, because I'm working for NASA, and it's really exciting. So thank you all. Thank you. I see some of my friends from around the nation uh, saying hello. Thank you very much for joining me, and I hope to see you. There will be a small time of interface that we might have as fellow cohort selectees, and then certainly in the future, I'm always open to staying connected. Okay, thank you, and back to you, Chanel.
Thank you, Araceli. We hope that this information was very, very helpful. Again, thank you all for joining, and this will conclude our webinar. This is our last webinar, so please make sure you go to Inspires and check out the rest. And these slides will actually be on Inspires too.